Welcome to the Full Moon Film Buff, episode 130. We're going to talk about Ginger Snaps Back, the beginning, from 2004. I watched this on Plex, and despite loving the original, I had not seen it before. As always, we start with the prominent crew and cast. You can also find links to a more complete credit list in the show notes. The film was directed by Grant Harvey, written by Christina Ray and Stephen Massicott. The special effects were by Howard Berger, Robert Kurtzman, and Greg Nicotero, also known as the KMB EFX Group. Grant Harvey was the second unit director on the original Ginger Snaps, and this sequel was one of his first jobs as the top director. In recent years, Harvey has continued to work primarily in television. This film was Christina Ray's first writing credit. She has since moved on to a producing role. Stephen Massicott is a playwright and screenwriter known for his work in both theater and film. Howard Berger began his journey during his teenage years. He starts working under the mentorship of Stan Winston in the early 80s. His passion for creature effects and prosthetic makeup led him to co-found the KNB EFX Group with Robert Kurtzman and Greg Nicotero in 1988, which would become one of the industry's most respected effects studios. He earned an Oscar for The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe in 2006. I can't even attempt to pick highlights from his credit list. Of course, we will see him again on this project in both film and television work. Robert Kurtzman began experimenting with makeup techniques and creating short films as a teenager. He moved to Hollywood and pursued his dream of working in special effects. He found his first major break working with Rick Baker. While he hasn't earned an Oscar yet, his credit list is just as long and unsummarizable as his fellow KNB EFX co-founders. Surprisingly, I don't think we see Kurtzman again in this project, but I could be mistaken. Greg Nicotero's professional journey began when he met George Romero during the filming of Day of the Dead in 1985. This encounter led to an apprenticeship under Tom Savini. He also does not have an Oscar, but he does have 4 Emmys for The Walking Dead, The Pacific, and the 2001 version of Dune, and we will see his work again. The cast includes Catherine Isabelle, returning as Ginger Fitzgerald, Emily Perkins returns as Bridget Fitzgerald, Nathaniel Arcand as Hunter, J.R. Bourne plays James, Hugh Dillon is Reverend Gilbert, Adrian Dorval as Seamus, Brendan Fletcher as Finn, David LaHaye as Claude, Tom McCamus as Wallace Rowlands, Matthew Walker as Doc Murphy, Fabian Bird plays Milo, Steve Mitchell is Geoffrey, and Edna Rain plays the Elder. We talked about Catherine Isabelle and Emily Perkins when we covered the original. Nathaniel Arcand first gained recognition playing William McNeil in CBC's North of 60 from 1994 to 1997. He later achieved greater prominence as Scott Cardinal in Heartland, where he was a regular cast member from 2007 to 2009 and made recurring appearances in subsequent seasons. He has also taken on various film roles throughout his career, primarily in independent productions. J.R. Bourne launched his acting career in the early 90s, but found his most memorable role as Chris Argent in Teen Wolf, a character that he portrayed from 2011 to 2017 and reprised in the 2023 film. While taking on substantial roles in series like The 100 and Mayans MC, Bourne cultivated an extensive television career with guest spots on shows including Fringe, Suits, Unreal, and Arrow. Though he has appeared in films, his television work remained the cornerstone of his career. Hugh Dillon first made his mark as the frontman of the Headstones, a successful 90s rock band. He transitioned into acting in the late 90s while continuing to perform with the Headstones. His breakthrough role came as Mike Sweeney in Durham County from 2007 to 2010, followed by his acclaimed performance as Ed Lane in Flashpoint from 2008 to 2012. He has become well known for his role as Sheriff Donnie Haskell in the hit series Yellowstone. More recently, Dillon has expanded into television production and writing, co-creating the series Mayor of Kingstown with Taylor Sheridan, in which he also appears as a cast member. Adrian Dorval worked primarily in television and film since the 90s. Brendan Fletcher began acting as a child performer in the early 90s. Fletcher first gained significant attention for his role in the 1996 film Air Bud, and went on to deliver a powerful performance in the critically acclaimed movie The Five Senses in 1999. He has appeared in numerous popular television series, including The Pacific, Supernatural, and Arrow. A recent highlight for me was his role as Krampus in the 2022 film Violent Night. David LaHaye began acting in French-language productions. A significant percentage of his credits are French-language films and television series. Tom McCamus built an impressive career spanning several decades. McCamus is perhaps best known for his work with the Stratford Festival in Ontario. In television and film, McCamus has maintained a steady presence since the 80s. He gained significant recognition for his role Mason Eckhart in the television series Mutant X from 2001 to 2004. I don't have any biographical information about Matthew Walker. He did have a 4-decade career as a working character actor. Let's get this out of the way first. This is not one of the rare instances where a sequel is better than the original. I still do recommend this film to fans of the original Ginger Snaps and period horror. While it doesn't quite reach the heights of the first film, it offers an interesting origin story with a strong atmosphere and performances from the returning leads. As a tidbit, this film's rugged Canadian setting and lore reminded me of the short story from which the original werewolf movie, The Werewolf, was adapted in 1913. And now we move on to the synopsis. The film begins with a summary. Each spring, a party from the Northern Legion Trading Company fort travels to the Hudson Bay to trade pelts for winter provisions. In 1815, the party never returned. Sisters Bridget and Ginger Fitzgerald are lost in the Canadian wilderness when they stumble upon an abandoned Indian settlement bearing signs of a bloody attack. An old Indian woman gives both Ginger and Bridget a bird's skull necklace that belonged to her and her sister. The woman calls them the Red and the Black and warns that unless they kill the boy, one sister will kill the other. The girl's horse is startled and flees. They chase it, but Bridget gets her foot caught in a trap. Ginger returns to the camp to find the Indian woman, but the Indian hunter and his wolf arrive before Ginger get back. The girls are terrified of him until he releases Bridget and leads them safely to Fort Bailey, where they take refuge. They are the daughters of a trader who drowned seeking passage west. The men are suspicious of anyone they don't know, but they reluctantly permit the sisters to stay. The sisters are taken to Doc Murphy, who inspects Bridget's wound. Murphy applies a leech, testing to see if a werewolf bit her. But since nothing happens, Fort Commander Wallace Lowlands knows they're safe. The fort has been under siege by werewolves for some time now. The sisters are treated with suspicion, particularly by Reverend Gilbert, who views the girls as temptation and harbingers of sin. They're given a room that belonged to Wallace's son Jeffrey and informed that he is dead, along with Wallace's Indian wife. The sisters find toy wolves and soldiers in their room, set up to fight each other. That night, Ginger is awakened by a nightmare. She hears a voice and investigates. Searching the halls, she finds the source of that voice and enters a small, bolted, dark room, reaching out to a deformed boy who bites her. Ginger and Bridget steal a saber and try to sneak out of the fort. James confronts them. While Ginger and James fight, werewolves attack, dragging one man out of the gate. Reverend Gilbert leads the sisters to an allegedly safe building, which actually contains a werewolf. The sisters are chased up the stairs, but Hunter appears just in time and kills the monster. Hunter knows of the black and the red. Ginger's nose starts to bleed and she has a fever, signs that she is infected. Hunter has a herb that helps Ginger, and then they start making out. Oh, turns out this is just a dream, and Ginger is bleeding from her bite wound. A lot. They go to see Doc Murphy to find Finn chopping up the leeches. Murphy thinks Finn was bit last night since he has a nosebleed too. Murphy makes Finn test himself with a leech. The leech and Finn instantly go crazy. Murphy shoots Finn dead. Out in the center of the fort is the dead body of a werewolf, bearing a tattoo identifying it as Claude's brother Jean-Pierre. Jean-Pierre led the crew to the Hudson Bay. The traders bury their dead and burn the werewolf corpses. The sisters learn the boy who bit Ginger is Wallace's son Jeffrey, whom everyone but Wallace believes to be dead. As Ginger sleeps, wereboy Jeffrey sneaks into the room and wakes her. She tries to grab him, but he gets away, taking a lock of her hair. Seamus investigates the noise and Geoffrey kills him. The others find the body with the lock of Ginger's telltale red hair beside it and drag Ginger away. James holds Bridget captive. Wallace arrives, dismisses James, and makes a deal with Bridget. Ginger's life in exchange for their silence regarding his son. Wallace and Bridget find Ginger at the doctor's, strapped to the examination table and held at gunpoint, about to be tested with a leech. Gilbert blames the entire predicament on Wallace's relationship with an indigenous woman. When Wallace demands they release Ginger, Murphy ignores the order and approaches Ginger with the leech. Wallace shoots him dead, prompting the other men to leave. They evict Seamus's half-breed son Milo from the fort. Ginger is determined to kill Jeffrey to lift the curse, but when she tries to do it, she can't. She can't make herself do it, and he escapes. Hunter reveals that he has sworn to protect the sisters and hunt down the bloodline. The men capture Jeffrey and confront Wallace. He kills his son himself. Now, with the sisters' protection at an end and no hope for a cure, Ginger is forced to leave. Bridget goes with her. Desperate, the sisters go to the hunter's cave with Milo leading the way. Milo calls the werewolves Wendigo. Ginger kills Milo shortly before they get there. At the cave, Hunter and the Indian seer woman reveal that the sisters' coming had long been prophesied. The red and the black follow the coming of the Wendigo and decide the fate of the werewolf bloodline. Bridget is put into a trance-like state where she has a vision of her destiny. She sees Ginger caught in a trap. Hunter intends to kill Ginger, but Bridget kills Ginger herself. As Bridget emerges from the trance, she finds that Ginger has killed the seer and fled. Hunter saw a vision where he died saving Bridget. Hunter leads Bridget back to the fort, assuring her that Ginger will follow them. Bridget is taken prisoner. Gilbert tells her to beg forgiveness to save her soul, but Bridget curses and spits in his face. Gilbert drags her out into the parade square and prepares to burn her at the stake. Wallace interrupts him and runs Gilbert through with his sword before setting him on fire. James fights Ginger and she slashes his throat. As he falls to the ground, bleeding to death, Ginger opens the gates, allowing in an army of werewolves who begin massacring the few remaining men. Hunter is the only one killing any werewolves. Wallace is bitten and sets the fort on fire before killing himself. Hunter urges Bridget to kill her sister. Instead, Bridget kills Hunter and flees with her sister. The film ends with only Ginger and Bridget alive, huddled in the snow in the woods. Bridget presses a cut on her hand against a cut on Ginger's hand, mingling their blood and infecting Bridget. Both sisters will now become werewolves. As the screen fades out, Bridget's voice says, "The day of reckoning, the day the curse grew stronger in the red and the black. Sisters united in blood, together forever." The practical effects by K&B EFX Group build on the work from previous films while adapting the period setting. The transformations are more savage and primal, fitting the frontier setting. The werewolves appear more feral and wolf-like than the original, emphasizing the wilderness aspect of the story, but raising the question of what's happened in the nearly 200 years between tales. The film incorporates Native American mythology and colonial werewolf folklore. It suggests lycanthropy existed in North America before European settlement, creating an interesting blend of Old World and New World supernatural traditions. Several elements of werewolf lore carry over from the original movie to this prequel. Werewolves are not immune to anything but silver. Normal weapons can hurt and kill them just fine. There is even less talk about the moon having any control over lycanthropes. There is no mention of the monk's hood or wolfsbane potential cure from the first film, which I found odd since it would have made perfect sense for the Indian wise woman to know about this herbal remedy. However, a little research uncovered that wolfsbane is not native to the American continent. European colonists would have brought it over. The film introduces the common lore element of how a werewolf can free themselves from the curse by killing the lycanthrope that infected them. This is the first intersection of the Wendigo and lycanthropy in horror cinema. So let's explore the Wendigo legend and its kinship with the werewolf mythos. The Wendigo is born from the harsh realities of winter survival among the Algonquin-speaking peoples of the northern United States and Canada. Both creatures represent a loss of human control. Where the werewolf transforms under the full moon's pull, the Wendigo manifests through the desperation of starvation and the taboo of cannibalism, serving as a cautionary tale, much like the werewolf's warning against unleashing one's inner beast. In traditional Algonquin folklore, the Wendigo is a towering, gaunt figure with gray skin, pulled tight over its bones, possessing glowing eyes reminiscent of a wolf's nocturnal gaze, lengthy yellowed fangs that mirror a lycanthrope's deadly bite, and an unnaturally long tongue. Perhaps its most striking feature is its emaciated form. Despite its enormous height, often 15 feet or taller, the Wendigo always appears to be starving. The creature grows in proportion to its latest meal, ensuring it can never achieve satisfaction, cursed with an insatiable hunger that parallels the werewolf's monthly bloodlust. The origin of the Wendigo varies across tellings, but most commonly it is created when a human resorts to cannibalism during the desperate months of winter. Like the werewolf's transformation, this metamorphosis represents a tragic loss of humanity, as the person develops a craving for human flesh. Beyond its literal interpretation, the Wendigo myth serves multiple cultural functions. Much as werewolf legends helped medieval communities explain and cope with serial killers and rabies outbreaks, it acts as a powerful deterrent against antisocial behavior, promoting community cohesion during difficult times when sharing resources could mean the difference between survival and death. Both creatures embody the thin line between civilization and savagery, between human and beast. The Wendigo has shown remarkable adaptability in contemporary media and literature, often conflated with werewolves in horror. In video games, films, and literature, the Wendigo continues to captivate audiences alongside its lycanthropic brethren. though these interpretations often stray from its original cultural context. What makes both the Wendigo and the werewolf particularly fascinating is their persistence as relevant metaphors across centuries. These myths insist that the most frightening monsters are not those lurking in the shadows, but those that emerge from within ourselves when we abandon our human values and community bonds. Together, they remind us of our responsibility to maintain our humanity, even in the face of desperate circumstances, and to remember that survival at the cost of our moral principles may be no survival at all. So now we're going to move on to the themes. In relocating its exploration of sisterly bonds to 19th century Canada, this prequel drives the franchise's central theme toward the darkest possible conclusion. The familiar faces of Bridget and Ginger Fitzgerald find themselves in unfamiliar territory, an isolated trading fort surrounded by both literal wolves and metaphorical ones in human form. Their modern-day mantra of out by 16 or dead in the scene emerges here from something far more elemental, born of a wilderness where survival depends entirely upon their connection to each other. Unlike the original film's Bridget, who fought to save her sister from lycanthropy, this incarnation makes a more profound choice when confronted with Ginger's transformation, to follow her sister into monstrosity, rather than face a world without her. The historical setting serves to intensify the sisters' isolation and mutual dependence. Trapped within a winter-bound fortress cut off from civilization, their relationship crystallizes under extreme pressure. The fort's exclusively male inhabitants view them through a lens of both desire and distrust, making their reliance on each other not merely emotional but essential for survival. Their position as outsiders, a recurring theme throughout the series, takes on a heightened significance in this historical context, where two unmarried young women face threats both supernatural and societal. The stakes for prequel Bridget are higher than for her modern counterpart. Should she choose to destroy the monster her sister becomes, she faces a solitude far more absolute than her contemporary version would have known. Most intriguing is the film's suggestion that the sisters' trajectory was predetermined long before they reached the fort. Indigenous prophecy reveals their story is cyclical, one that has played out before and will continue to do so, an eternal loop of transformation, violence, and sisterly devotion. This historical setting thus transcends mere period backdrop, implying that the bond between Bridget and Ginger exists outside of time itself. Their pledge of together forever evolves from teenage rebellion into something mythological, a promise echoing across centuries. When Bridget ultimately chooses to embrace the curse alongside her sister, it reads less as a capitulation and more as the fulfillment of an ancient destiny. This interpretation presents a darker vision of sisterly love than its predecessor. By concluding with both sisters embracing their monstrous nature, the film makes a bold statement about the essence of sisterly devotion, suggesting that the ultimate expression of love might be refusing to let someone face their darkness alone. Through this lens, what initially appears as a bleak ending reveals itself as strangely triumphant, marking not the victory of humanity over monstrosity, but of sisterly bonds over everything else, including humanity itself. So, if you like lycanthropes, like, share, and subscribe. Contribute your thoughts and additional observations in the comments below. Let me know if I missed anything or what you noticed. Next, thanks to an older movie showing up on Amazon, I plan on discussing Chabelo and Pepito versus the Monsters from 1973. Keep your eye on the moon, a silver bullet in the chamber, and we'll see you back here next episode.